Hey everyone, what's going on? Today on August 14th, the major news story in the media was of this Italian bridge collapse. And if you've been following my channel and my blog, I have talked a ton for the last 10 months or so about bridge symbolism and how it's within the mainstream media. I talked about that's why Super Bowl 52 was held in Minneapolis, because Minneapolis had the famous bridge collapse in 2007. That bridge collapse happened on the date of August 1st, 8/1, and it supposedly fell 81 feet. And the main trusses were 81 meters long. And if you look up the report, it says that it took the emergency crew 81 minutes to transport everyone to the hospital. And I also talked about how the Super Bowl had a connection to the stock market, and that's why, it was the 88th anniversary of the stock market crash. And in Gematria, the word Trump equals 88. Herbert Hoover was the president during the last stock market crash. His initials are HH. H is the eighth letter, a lot like an 88. And think about where the Super Bowl is played at. U.S. Bank Stadium. U.S. Bank Stadium just so happens to equal 88 in Gematria. So does the word kneel. So does the Star Spangled Banner. So does Colin Kaepernick. They all equal 88. And I talked about all of this kneeling stuff, and I said it was synced up to Charles Manson and his helter-skelter theory, and then Charles Manson died a month later, and it was synced up to the Super Bowl. But the reason I bring all that up is because the national anthem stuff is connected to Francis Scott Key, the guy who wrote the national anthem. And, Justin Timberlake did the halftime show this year. The last time he did the halftime show was when he accidentally showed Janet Jackson's boob, and she was singing songs off of her album called Rhythm Nation 1814. And she says 1814 was in honor of the year Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem. And I bring all that up because Francis Scott Key just so happens to be born on August 1st, 8/1. So it was connected to all of this bridge symbolism. I talked about a possible bridge collapse, and then we got this bridge collapse in Miami, a pedestrian bridge collapse that was synced up by the numbers. But I kept saying there's something more. They're syncing it up to, this bridge symbolism keeps coming. I think there's going to be another, major bridge collapse this year, possibly the Golden Gate Bridge, because this year the Golden Gate Bridge turned 81 years old. It's been open for 81 years. And in Gematria, which is the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases, Golden Gate Bridge equals 81 the frontwards way and 81 also in the reverse method. And then it turned 81 years old this year. If you're new to what I just did there too, writing out Golden Gate Bridge and showing you the gematria of it, please check out some of the links in the description, and it will teach you how to apply this for yourself. But this stems back to ancient knowledge, such as Kabbalah, that uses gematria within it, but a core belief within Kabbalah is the belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number. And the more and more you study this, the more and more you'll see that everything in this world is truly interrelated, and nothing, it all happens for a reason. There's a cause and effect for everything. And that stems back to another piece of ancient knowledge called Hermeticism. Everything has a cause and an effect. Everything is the same, but everything's also the opposite. As above, so below. Everything has a vibration, and that's why numbers and signs and symbolism that they put in front of us through the mainstream media and our sports leagues and everything else, that's why it's important, because they can use this knowledge and use it to rule over the rest of the world who has no idea that this system exists. But if you pay enough attention you will absolutely see how this exists in your own life, and you'll see how it exists within the media every single day. And just a quick example here. Everything is the same and everything is the opposite. Look at the word Satan in Gematria. Notice how it equals 55 and also 10. Now look at the word God. The word God, 55 in reverse and also 10 in reverse. So God is the opposite of Satan, right? But it's also the same. God also equals 17, which is interesting because the word hell equals 17 in reverse. And look what heaven equals. 55 the frontwards way. God equals 55 in reverse. So anyway, the reason I brought that back up is because Pope Francis is absolutely important to this bridge symbolism. Pope Francis, if you don't know, this year in 2017, he turned 81 years old. And he turned 81 years old 81 days after the Jesuit anniversary. And he's supposedly the first Jesuit pope. So he turned 81 days after the Jesuit anniversary. In Hebrew gematria, with the Hebrew lettering, the word pope equals 81. Even the guy before Pope Francis, Pope Benedict, he became the pope on April 19th, 419. 419 is the 81st prime number even. And in 4 days here, on August 18th, 81818, a lot like 81, 81, you know, or 1818. Pope Francis, that will be 8 months and 1 day after Pope Francis's 81st birthday. It will be 81818. So, and the reason Pope Francis is important is because the word pontiff means bridge builder. And also, if you remember a long time ago, when Donald Trump was running for president and talking about building a wall, Pope Francis told him that real Christians don't build walls, they build bridges. And possibly I'll explain a little bit of this wall symbolism as we go along, because I had some crazy synchronicity with pink and some recent news stories regarding the missing girl Molly Tibbetts. And it was a bunch of pink stuff in that story. And yeah, I'll explain it. But the Iowa Hawkeyes have pink walls, and you think about Pink Floyd and the wall. Maybe I will explain it later. But anyway, in regards to all of this 81 stuff, lately I've also been documenting a whole lot about the Cleveland Indians and how there's something super important to the Cleveland Indians and the number 624. But I also talked about how the date of 624 was important to Pope Francis, because that's the 175th day of the year. And in Gematria, the word Pope equals 175. And Pope Francis also equals 175. And think about the Golden Gate Bridge that's in San Francisco, named after St. Francis of Assisi, the guy who received the first stigmata. And that's who Pope Francis is supposedly also named after. So, you know, there's all of these connections. The word Jesuit equals 624. Pope Francis, supposedly the first Jesuit pope, but you can find pictures of him doing the Freemasonic hand pose before he was the pope, right? And a Freemason is not supposed to be able to be a Catholic, and a Catholic isn't supposed to be able to be a Freemason. So now we got the Pope, who is the leader of the Catholic Church, who is a Freemason. And Freemasonry, modern Freemasonry, was founded on the date of 624. That's also the day that Grover Cleveland died in connection to the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series in 1908. But anyway, if you read out the word 81, 81 also equals 624. And the only game that had a score of 8-1 today in baseball just so happened to be the Cleveland Indians. They won 8-1 over the Cincinnati Reds. What are the odds of that? I've been documenting like crazy about the Cleveland Indians and bridge symbolism all year. Now we get this major bridge collapse finally, and on the same day, the Indians are the only team who win with a score of 8-1, synced up to all the bridge symbolism. The date is perfect for the Cleveland Indians too, because it is 14/8. That's how they would write it in Italy, right? And that bridge was 148 feet tall. Cleveland Indians equal 148. So does Donald J. Trump. And Donald J. Trump was all about Cleveland, had his national convention in Cleveland in 2016, just after LeBron James of the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA Finals on the real King James's birthday. King James wins on the real King James's birthday. And then Donald Trump has his national convention in Cleveland. Then the Indians are in the World Series. That was synced up to Donald Trump and the number 48 and building the wall. You know, wall equals 48, Donald Trump equals 48. The Indians haven't won the World Series since 1948. It was the biggest election upset since the year 48 when Harry S. Truman won. Harry S. Truman equals 148 like Cleveland Indians, like Donald J. Trump. Also, his vice president, Mike Pence, the 48th vice president, and he's from Indiana, the land of the Indian, right? So, and Mike Pence's birthday is also 6/7, June 7th. Cleveland Indians, the small way, equals 67. So, absolutely synced up to the Cleveland Indians with Pence and Trump. And, you know, so whatever. Like I said, the date 14/8, Cleveland Indians equal 148. And the date that, well, I didn't put it in here, but the date that this bridge opened was on September 4th of the year 67, 9-4. Cleveland Indians, with the S exception, or the S and V exception, equals 94. And then the small way, they equal 67. So it syncs up to the date that this bridge was even built or opened, 9/4 of 67. And then it collapses on 14/8. Cleveland Indians equal all three of them things. Italy equals 67 in gematria, just like Cleveland Indians. Also, think about Italy in regards to where Pope Francis is from, you know? Italy and the Vatican, Italy. I mean, come on. What a joke. Before I move on, I forgot to mention this too about June 24th. This year on June 24th, it was Pope Francis's 1929th day of being the Pope, which reminds me of the year of the stock market crash, right, 1929. That was also the year that Vatican City became a sovereign nation, or a sovereign state, 1929. And that's a super important year. The stock market crash, the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Think about Stoneman Douglas, you know, that happened this year. The Pope, that was the Pope during that time, he died at the age of 81. Also, the Pope, when the Jesuits were founded, he also died at the age of 81. So, you know, super important. Also, this bridge collapse happening in Genoa. Let me find it here. Bridge collapse happened in Genoa, Italy. Did I not put it in here? Yeah. The reason that's important is because when you look up Genoa, out of all the things it lists about Genoa, it doesn't tell you like when it was founded or anything, but it tells you the patron saint day is on June 24th for John the Baptist, which I think they believe this is John the Baptist's birthday. June 24th, 624. So I know that it is synced up to everything that I am talking about. It's a famous feast day or whatever in Genoa, where this bridge collapse happened. A famous feast day is 624. This big number connected to the Indians, connected to Pope Francis, who's also, you know, comes from Italy. Another reason that Italy is important to this story and important to the Cleveland Indians is because in 2016, I documented a bunch of stuff about Italy and how it was connected to the Cleveland Indians being in the World Series. And if you've been following what I've been saying about bridge collapses, I talked a lot about how it's connected to earthquakes as well. Bridge collapses and earthquakes go hand in hand. And in 2016, we had an Italy earthquake on August 24th. And then on October 26th, we also had an earthquake. We had two earthquakes on October 26th in Italy. So an Italy earthquake on August 24th of 2016. And then on game 2 of the World Series, there was 2 more earthquakes in Italy. And Italy equaled 67, just like Cleveland Indians. You know, they had 67 losses in that season. Their record was 94 and 67. Go look it up. 2016 was 94 and 67 was their regular season record. They equal both of them. Talked about curse of Rocky Colavito equaling 94 as well. That's what they're cursed by. Anyway, if you go back and look at the game on August 24th that year, they played the Oakland A's. And I can't remember if they won or lost, but the score was 5-1. And Cleveland equals 51. This was just after LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers had broke the 51-year curse for the Cleveland sports teams, right? They hadn't won in 51 years. Cleveland equals 51. LeBron James equals 51. Quicken Loans, where they play, equals 51. Cleveland Cavs equal 51. What was it? Believe was the slogan. Believe equals 51. They had LeBron James later that year dressed up as Jerome from the Martin Lawrence show for Halloween. Martin Lawrence was 51 years old at the time. That TV show is all about Channel 51. Then they went to the White House just after Donald Trump won the election. On the day that leaves 51 days in the year, they went on the same day that Donald Trump went. You know, just never ending. It was all about 51. And the Indians played the Oakland A's that day, and the score was 5-1. And Oakland is the team that had the 1989 earthquake series when they swept the San Francisco Giants, right? Also, the day of Game 2, when we got 2 more earthquakes in Italy, the Indians lost to the Cubs 5-1. What are the odds? You know, they lost 5-1. Cleveland equals 51. Everything I just said. Also in that old post, I mentioned Grover Cleveland Alexander in that post, and he had a record of 373 pitching wins in the NL, and his final win came on Rocky Colavito's birthday on August 10th, right? It was in the year 29, though, I believe. 1929, once again. But Rocky Colavito wasn't born until 33, but it was August 10th. And Grover Cleveland Alexander died on 11-4. This is the 114th World Series that we're going into. After the Indians lost to the Cubs, Terry Francona became 11-4 in World Series. His father, Tito Francona, just died this year. His birthday was 11-4. Not like 114. I just recently documented about Grover Cleveland Alexander as well in regards to the LeBron James stuff with the lemon guy and Donald Trump saying they were stupid because that's all synced up to the same thing I'm talking about. But in 1948, the Indians had a player named Don Lemon, and in a movie, Don Lemon played Grover Cleveland Alexander. Can't remember what the movie was called, but it was synced up once again to the number 114, like the 114th World Series. We just recently got the Holy Fire in California that was in Cleveland National Forest, right, named after Grover Cleveland, and that forest opened on the date of 7/1, which is 114 days before the 114th World Series. It's also the same day that LeBron James signed with the Lakers. Think about it, Cleveland to LA. LeBron James, the big way, equals 114. Signs with the Lakers 114 days for the 114th World Series. That I got a good feeling that Cleveland is going to be in. The pink symbolism, I'm going to make a separate video on it, but it was showing me Pink Floyd The Wall, who it stars the character Pink, who is played by Bob Geldof, and he's famous for the song called I Don't Like Mondays, that was a tribute to the Cleveland Elementary shooting that happened in 1979 or 8. So, you know, once again, it was synced up to Cleveland. Also, the death of his daughter and some other stuff. Hopefully, I'm not losing you here, but look. So that A's game was a score of 5-1. when there was that earthquake that was synced up in 2016. And then the other two earthquakes came and the Indians lost 5-1 to the Cubs. If you go from June 24th to the day of this bridge collapse, it was 51 days. Like, what are the odds of that, you know? And if you go from Pope Francis's anniversary being the Pope to today, 5 months and 1 day, another 51. And when the Indians won today, they kept their 51 losses. So they have 51 losses, 5 months, 1 day after Pope Francis's anniversary being the Pope, 51 days after this big important day, 624. Remember, Rocky Colavito equals 624. Detroit Tigers equals 624. So that's who they were cursed. That's who he got traded to. That's when they became cursed. Today even syncs up even more to the World Series, considering it's 70 days before the World Series. And Indians in Gematria equals 70. They haven't won for 70 years this year. If they make the World Series, it will be 70 years since they've won. They played their 119th game of the season today. Indians also equals 119, just like this bridge name, Morandi Bridge. It equals 119. In regards to the pink symbolism that I was just recently talking about, and I talked about how the last time this happened with Pink, I predicted her to sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl, and then a month later we found out she's going to be singing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. And I knew there was something important to what I've been recently talking about and how it was going to come up. And then now we get this big bridge collapse. But Pink equals 119. Family Guy equals 119. Family Guy was really important to the bridge stuff I talked about with the birth of my son and whatnot. And in that post, I even mentioned how his name in Satanic Gematria equals 857, which is the 148th prime number. And that Miami Bridge collapse happened 148 days before Rocky Colavito's birthday. So I even mentioned 148 within this bridge collapse post from previously. And now we're getting a story of a bridge collapse on 14/8. Morandi Bridge in Jewish Gematria equals 321, just like my son's name as well. So it's fitting. He was born on January 17th. The word bridge equals 117 and much, much more. January 17th is even 6 months and 24 days after 624, and so on. I pointed out that Vatican also equals 70 and 119, just like Indians. It's funny, too. I just made a post in regards to the Grand Slam of David Boat, or however you say his name. He had a grand slam for the Cubs to win the game against the Nationals the other night, and I talked about how it was interesting that the big hype that day was also on Tiger Woods, and Tiger Woods is the youngest player to get a career grand slam in golf. So I looked up grand slam, and I found out the term actually comes from the game Contract Bridge, the card game, or whatever it is, Bridge the game. And I never documented about it, but I just remembered it. And I thought, that's interesting. It has something to do with bridge, you know. So Grand Slam goes back to Contract Bridge. So I looked up the Cubs game because I've been talking about how the Indians might possibly play the Cubs in the World Series again this year. And notice that the Brewers beat the Cubs 7-0 today. 7-0. Indians equals 70 and so on, you know. 70 days before the World Series. The score is 7-0. Indians equal 70. They haven't won the World Series in 70 years. Something I didn't notice, though, before. I've been following the Cubs like crazy. I still think it is for the Cubs to be in the World Series. But it is interesting that in 1982, the guy who Rocky Colavito was traded for, Harvey Keene, he coached the Brewers to their only World Series in 1982. And they lost that World Series, but they were known as Harvey's Wall Bangers because they hit a lot of home runs and whatnot. So it just makes me wonder, would it be that obvious? Would they put the Indians versus the Brewers in the World Series? You know, the Indians break the curse against a team that was coached by the guy that Rocky Colavito was traded for. Just seems a little bit too obvious to me, but most people probably aren't paying that much attention to it anyway, you know. And I also put it out, that trade was in 1960, and 1982 was 22 years later. And ESPN just recently released a video about a fake conspiracy guy talking about how the Indians, or Cleveland, is just cursed by the number 22 in general. And all of them things, I'm pretty sure if you look them all up, you know, there's a lot of things where it truly seems that they are cursed by the number 22. But there was also some things where they weren't cursed by the number 22. So, I don't know. Just pointed that out. I also pointed out that after today, the Cubs are now on 68 wins, the Brewers are on 68 wins, and the Indians are on 68 wins. And I believe they're the only three teams right now that have 68 wins. So, and Italy in reverse equals 68. So, 68 was also something I was talking about with the 624, and how it was synced up to 911 symbolism, which is interesting with that 119 coding on that bridge. Also in 2016, in regards to the Indians, I talked about how there was a huge Native American theme and how it was synced up to the area that I live in, with the town that I live in killed the last keeper of the sacred pole of the Omaha Indians, Chief Yellow Smoke, and this was after Prince had just died on the 112th day of the year, and it was synced up to the 112th World Series that came to an end on 11/2, and so on, you know. And Prince had the yellow cloud guitar, and I was talking about Chief Yellow Smoke, and the town I live in murdered him. He's the last keeper of the sacred pole. They were going to come kill the whole town, but the Freemasons saved the town, and they didn't kill the town. But that sacred pole got taken away and went to some museum, and they didn't get it back until the date of 7/12 of 1989. And then last year, in 2016, we also got an Italy train wreck on that same day, 7/12, or also 12/7. And that was a humongous number that I kept talking about with the Native American theme. Even the Dakota Access Pipeline stuff that came out just before the Indians made the World Series, right? Think about it. The Indians in the World Series. Then all of a sudden we get the Standing Rock stuff synced up to the Native American stuff. The Simpsons even had the episode where Bart Simpson saw the future at the Indian casino, and he saw that Lisa was the president after Donald Trump, right? The woman president after Donald Trump. But we got a story of 127 arrested at the Dakota Access Pipeline. There's all this stuff with Michael Jordan in 127, and he played baseball under Terry Francona, who was the Indians coach. And the North Dakota became a state. It was the 127th anniversary of becoming a state on 11/2 that year. North Dakota equals 127. I mean, I just talked about all of the stuff with 127, how it synced up to the Indians. So just put that back in here because there was an Italy train wreck. Italy was even synced up to the Indians that year through a train wreck and also through earthquakes. Also, what are the odds that just below this bridge story, we get a story of these 300 priests in Pennsylvania, you know, in a sex abuse scandal thing, right? 300 priests in Pennsylvania. If you go back and really watch what I was talking about with the bridge stuff, it was super connected to Philadelphia and San Francisco that have a relationship, and the Ben Franklin Bridge and whatnot. So, just interesting. This is in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania equals 152. This was 152 days after that Miami pedestrian bridge collapse. Also, Marani Bridge equals 79. Bridge collapse equals 79. The story comes 79 days after the anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge opening. The 79th prime, or 79 is the 22nd prime number. Italy, the small way, equals 22. And this story came 22 days before the 51st anniversary of that bridge being opened, right? The 51st anniversary. And then think about the 22s, though, from the 22 years of Harvey Keene and whatnot. I don't know. Something interesting. Someone also pointed out on Zach's blog that Christopher Columbus was actually born in Genoa, which is interesting in regards to killing the Indians, right? Coming over, supposedly killing the Indians. But Christopher Columbus is super synced up to, yet again, the Jesuits and Pope Francis and whatnot. His name, Cristobal Colon, equals 220, and he died 220 days after the day he supposedly discovered America. And the Jesuits were founded when the 220th Pope was the Pope, and Pope Francis's birthday is not only 81 days after the Jesuit anniversary, it's 2 months and 20 days of 220. And Donald Trump equals 220, Prince Charles equals 220, and there's a big web of events, because the 220th Pope was also the one who fully excommunicated King Henry VIII because he wanted to get a divorce, right? And he wanted to get a divorce from Catherine of Aragon, who was the daughter of the people who financed Christopher Columbus to go to America and whatnot. So, all of these people are interrelated. They're all one and the same. They want you to think that the Catholic Church is separate from, the Church of England. It's separate from Freemasonry, but it's really not. They all have these same core beliefs. They're just different groups that are all working together to create division and make you confused and think that there's, it's one group over the other when it's truly these groups that understand this knowledge and they're using it to rule over us. So, we'll keep following the story, but what are the odds? I talk about a bridge collapse all year. We get a major bridge collapse now. And I talk about how it's synced up to Pope Francis like crazy all year. And then it just so happens to happen in Italy, reminding us of where Vatican City is and whatnot, in the Vatican. So, how interesting, They kept saying 22 were killed on a bunch of the articles. Italy equals 22. Yeah, I mean, it sure seems this story was created just for me to see, with as much as I've been documenting about the Cleveland Indians, and they're the only team that scores 8-1 on this day, and the bridge symbolism was all about 81, so we'll leave it at that. Possibly we'll get a major earthquake then. Since we got a major bridge collapse, maybe we're gonna get, maybe it still is connected to the Golden Gate Bridge or something of the sort, Maybe there will be a major earthquake at the World Series or something like that. Like the night. I've been saying that for a while now. So we got the Hawaii earthquake. Possibly we'll get a, earthquake and bridges go hand in hand. Possibly we're getting another major earthquake coming up soon. Have to see when the moon phases are. It seems that they're really synced up to the moon. So I guess have a good one. Peace.